Everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to talk about the disappearance and now death of Gabby Petito and then her boyfriend Brian Laundrie, who I guess is a person of interest, who is now missing. And so this case is about this couple who embarked on a cross-country journey, and she ended up missing. He returned back to Florida, where they're from, and now there's an investigation because her body was found. And so there was a video, and I actually wasn't going to cover this because although I cover missing persons cases a lot on this channel, they're usually African-American girls that are missing, and I'll follow their cases. But this one, I was hearing the headlines, but wasn't really paying attention. And then my daughter came over and she brought up, was asking me, Mom, have you been following this story? And so I let her know that, I saw the headlines, but I haven't really looked into it. And the reason I decided to do this video is because my daughter recently moved back to Florida from California, and her husband did like a similar. They weren't going to national parks, but they were traveling from California back here. And my daughter had planned like all of these stops and whatnot and things that they could do with the kids to make, so that they weren't driving this long ride in total chaos, right? And so I was calling her, texting her like every hour, I probably was getting on her nerves because I wanted to know where she was at every point of that trip. And if there was an instance where she stopped, responding to me, then I could be like Johnny on the spot, okay? And so I could really relate to this situation. And then also I thought it was so crazy. And I know people do this all the time, but I'm sitting there thinking like, there is no way I am going to be in a van, a car, any closed confinement with anybody for months. Okay, like to me, and it's just me. It's the introvert in me. It's the Virgo in me. It's the, I don't like to be around people like that in me. And I think I've shared with you guys before in my videos, like when I'm traveling with people, the most I really can do is probably 3 or 4 days. And then after that, I'm just like, oh, I need my space. And my best friend and I, we went on a trip to Cuba, and the trip was like almost 2 weeks. And when we got back, I was like, girl, I love you, but like, dang, let's not talk for about a month or so. And that's just how I am as a person. So I am just trying to wrap my brain around the fact that these people, or that people in general, do these cross-country trips that last for months at a time or weeks at a time. And I'm thinking I would have lost my mind. And it seems that the pressure of being in this confined space may have been the downfall of their trip. And so after my daughter and I talked, I started Googling the case, like to see what I could find out about it. And I came across the footage of a police stop that took place in Wyoming that dealt with some domestic abuse. But before we get into the footage, me talking about the footage, which is really what this video is going to be about, I want to catch you all up to speed on what is going on with this case, because you probably know, and if you don't know, they did find her body a few days ago, and now Brian, who was the boyfriend, he returned back to Florida, and he is now missing. And there's currently a search for him in a nature preserve here in Florida. It's a huge, massive park. It's like 25,000 square feet. The police were searching it the other day. Then they called off the search. And now they are back out there in the preserve. They've shut the park down. And they are now searching for him again. And so CNN did a great recap of what has been going on and chronicling what happened from the time that Gabby and Brian actually left to embark on this journey. And so we're going to go through that real quick, and then I'll give you my thoughts on that video from the police stop. And so it says Petito and Laundrie embarked on a cross-country trip, according to Northport Police Chief Todd Garrison, who refers to Laundrie as Petito's fiance. They plan to travel in Petito's white Ford van, and it's like a little unique looking Ford van. My daughter said that they're very popular out there in California. I had never seen a van like this before, but it is a very small van with, I think it only has like 2 seats, and then it has like a open area in the back where I guess they were sleeping, and it was just too much for me. But they were going to travel in this van, or they did travel in this van to the West Coast and visit state and national parks across the Western United States. She had been excited to share her journey with her family and others on social media. She had started a YouTube channel, and she had recently lost her job or quit her job. And so she wanted to give a try at doing this YouTube channel and chronicling this trip that they were on. And maybe it was going to be a travel blog. And so they said that she maintained regular contact with her family members during her travels. However, the communication abruptly stopped around the end of August. And so on August 12th, 2021, they were in Moab, Utah. Police have an encounter with the couple on August 12th, where officers described them as having engaged in some sort of altercation. And that's the video that I'm going to talk about after we go through this timeline. And so it says, although the two are described as getting into a physical fight following an argument, both the male and female reported they are in love and engaged to be married and desperately didn't wish to see the other one being charged with a crime. And so at officer's suggestions, the couple separated for the night, and he described Petito as confused and emotional. And after evaluating the totality of the circumstances, they did not believe that the situation escalated to a level of domestic violence as much as that of a mental health crisis. And that was Officer Daniel Robbins, and that's what he wrote in his report following this hour plus long traffic stop. And so the couple each had their own phones in case of emergency, according to the report. And so then in the last week of August, Petito's family tell police they were last in contact with her during the last week of August. Northport police say before that last communication, Petito is believed to have been in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. In a news conference in September, Petito's family attorney, Richard Stafford, says the family's last communication with Petito was August 30th, but they don't believe it was her. It was actually the boyfriend, and there was text messages going back and forth. And so Stafford shares a timeline of events on September 17th as the family knows it. And so on August 24th, Petito FaceTimed her family, her mother, and tells her that she is leaving Utah and heading to the Teton Range in Wyoming. On August 25th, there are multiple texts between Petito and her mother. The young woman's family believes she is in the Tetons, and I may be pronouncing this wrong, it's Teton, on this date, which was August 25th. On August 27th, there were more texts between Petito and her mother, during which the family believes she remains in the Tetons. And then on August 30th was when they got this text message that they don't believe it was the daughter. And the text message said no service and that they were in Yosemite National Park. So on September 1st, Laundrie returns to the couple's Northport home where his parents also live. And then that was according to the police. And then according to an affidavit, Attached to a search warrant request, a license plate reader shows the vehicle exiting Interstate 75 into Northport at 10:25 a.m. So the white vehicle Petito and Laundrie had been traveling in was later recovered by police at the home, and it was processed, and there was some material in there that authorities will be going through, Northport Police said during a briefing. Then on September 11th, after not being able to get in touch with her, Petito's family, who lives in New York, reports her missing to the Suffolk County, New York Police Department. Northport authorities go to Laundrie's home that night and ask to speak to him and his family, but were essentially handed information about an attorney. So he's obviously told his parents something, because they knew not to talk to the police and they hired an attorney. And so this was the extent of the conversation with the family. They were back basically like, we have no comment, contact our lawyer. So on September 16th, in a letter read by the Petito family attorney during a news briefing held by police, the missing woman's family begs the Laundrie's family to help with the investigation, and it was stated that the statement read, please, if you or your family have any decency left, please tell us where Gabby is located. Tell us if we are even looking in the right place. All we want is for Gabby to come home. Please help us make that happen. And then it says that the Petito's family reached out to the Laundrie's family earlier in the month for information on Petito's whereabouts, but the family refused to answer. And they said that we haven't been able to sleep or eat, and our lives are falling apart. And that was also part of the letter that was read. So on September 17th, after several days of both Petito's attorney and police pleading with the Laundrie's family to cooperate with the investigation, Laundrie's family requests police to come to their home, where they shared that they haven't seen Brian since September 14th. And it says, we've been trying all week to talk to his family, to talk to Brian, and now they've called us here on Friday. We've gone to the home, and they're saying now they have not seen their son. And this was the this police spokesperson in Northport. So the Laundrie family's attorney, Stephen Bertolino, told CNN that the whereabouts of Brian Laundrie are currently unknown. The FBI is currently at the Laundrie residence removing property to assist in locating Brian. As of now, the FBI is now looking for both Gabby and Brian. Local and federal authorities kicked off a search for the 23-year-old man. It's important to note that while Brian is a person of interest in Gabby's disappearance, he is not wanted for a crime. That was from the Northport Police Twitter account. And we are not currently working a crime investigation. We are now working a multiple missing persons investigation. And then on September 18th, Northport police say authorities are conducting a search for Laundrie at the Carlton Preserve, a natural area, more than 80 miles of hiking trails in Venice, Florida. Roughly 50 law enforcement officers from 5 local agencies and the FBI are searching for Laundrie, and that came from the spokesperson with the Northport Police. And then the FBI announces that the agency and its partners are also conducting ground surveys in Grand Teton National Park that are relevant to Petito's disappearance. And then the national park is where Petito is believed to have been before her last communication with her family, police had previously said. And I'm sure they have the cell tower footage, and they know for a fact that that was the last place that she was. And then unfortunately on September 19th, human remains discovered in Teton County, Wyoming, are consistent with the description of missing 22-year-old Gabby Petito. FBI officials say in a news conference. Full forensic identification has not been completed to confirm 100% that we found Gabby, but her family has been notified of the discovery. That was Charles Jones of the FBI, Denver Supervisory Senior Resident Agent in Wyoming. Jones opens the news conference extending condolences to Petito's family. The search for Laundrie in Florida's Carlton Reserve continues until about 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Excuse me. September 20th, the parents of Brian Laundrie are questioned at their home by the FBI. Christopher and Robert Laundrie are escorted from their home and returned after federal agents executed a search warrant, according to Taylor, the Northport spokesperson. And the search lasted for several hours. Police say they have exhausted search avenues at the nature reserve, and the search area has shifted. And then Utah authorities released to the media a recording of a 911 call on August 12th, the date in Moab that an encounter with the police, with the couple took place. And it says, we drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl. The caller tells 911 operators. Then we stopped. Then they ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off. And so we know that they pretty much confirmed that it is Gabby whose body that they found, and they have started the autopsy. And then later today, they are going to do a press conference about her autopsy. Basically, in the initial part of the autopsy, they're going to be looking for visible signs of abuse or injury, most likely injuries to her head, injuries to her neck, if there were bruising on the body, anything that's consistent with a trauma that she may have experienced. Maybe they had gotten into a fight again. He knocked her down. She hit her head. Was she stabbed? Was she shot? That type of thing would be the initial part of the autopsy. And then they'll do toxicology tests. And then the toxicology test can take weeks up until months to get back to see if there were drugs in the system or anything of that nature. And so it would be interesting to see what the results of this autopsy is. There's a video playing, so I was looking to see if maybe they were having that autopsy. So let's go to the video. The video was like an hour and 17 minutes of footage of this police stop. These police officers, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 police officers at this stop. And so when they pull up on the van is like kind of off the road and it hit a curb. And I guess they were driving sporadically when the police officer turned the lights on and they went to get over and they ended up hitting the curb. So they're in the car. The first police officer on the scene walks up and he gets to the door and he's talking to them, and Gabby's crying. And he basically removes her from the car, asks Brian to give him the keys to the car. He got the keys. He put the keys on the outside of the car. He takes Gabby off to the side and he's talking to her and he's asking her what's going on. And so she's basically telling him, we've been in this van for months now. Like, I'm over it. He's over it. She talks about being OCD and how she's freaking out. And then they get into this back and forth altercation. So then they go and talk to him and ask him what happened. They make him get out. And then they put Gabby in the police car. I thought this was interesting. They put her in the back of the police vehicle with the air conditioner on, get her water and everything. But then they tell the Brian guy to get out of the car and they go and make him sit on the curb. And so his version of the story is that they're driving, they get into an argument. She grabs the steering wheel, and I guess that's why he was swerving over the road. And then he eventually runs off the road, and they kept asking him what made him hit the curb, and I don't think he ever answered that curb. So what I could surmise, because the police officer goes back and forth between the two of them, like getting different parts of this story, trying to piece everything together. And so what I surmise from the things that they were saying is that she admitted herself she's OCD. She likes things in place. She probably likes a clean space. They opened up the back of the van where they were sleeping at, and I mean, it was just a bunch of stuff thrown in the back, but I'm assuming they probably have like an air mattress or futon type mattress back there. She talked about having her computer and wanting to start setting up her YouTube page, her website, start chronicling what is going on the trip. And then he got into the back of the van, and I guess he disrupted what she was doing. Now, he said that, she's a neat freak. She's really clean. He is a dirty guy. They're out there traveling across country. He has on slides. He's like, my feet are dirty. There's dust, dirt all over me. And so I guess when he went to get into the van, she was upset that he was tracking dirt into the back of the van that she had just cleaned out and straightened up or whatever. And so that was the start of the argument. Now, it was never addressed in that video, the story about them fighting, walking down the sidewalk, fighting, and then jumping into the car. Now, what he said about the car was that at some point I guess he was trying to drive away or something, and she climbed through the window. I never did get a clear understanding of what that was all about. But so this altercation takes place. She was asked, did she grab the steering wheel? Because he said she grabbed the steering wheel. She said, no, she didn't grab the steering wheel, that she hit him on the arm. So the police are comparing these stories. And so what they decide is that he was driving, she was arguing, she starts hitting him on the arm. And although she may not have actually grabbed the steering wheel and yanked it down, causing them to run into the curb, that her hitting him on the arm pulled the, like if you're driving like this and somebody's hitting your arm, then it's going to knock it down, make you lose control of the car. So long story short, the police decided that because he had visible injuries and she did not, because his face was scratched up, he had scratches on his hand, he had a bruise on his arm. So they surmised that she flipped out. They were arguing she was the aggressor because she was upset about whatever happened in the back of the van, him tracking the dirt, that they had to charge her with domestic violence. But they didn't want to arrest them because they thought it was just a lover's spat. They've been in this van all this time. They're just tired of each other. They need a break. And so they decided to charge her with domestic violence, but they are not going to arrest her. They're going to give her a citation. She'll need to appear before the magistrate the next day because it was after 5 o'clock. The magistrate was gone. So they were going to get him a hotel room because he's the alleged victim. And then they are going to let her take the van, and then she can sleep in the van, which I thought was kind of weird. I was like, why don't y'all get both of them a hotel room in separate hotels? Because now you're leaving this woman alone in a van in the middle of nowhere, where like in this park, where she doesn't know anybody. And I think I would have been uncomfortable. And so they talked to both of them. And the Brian guy was sort of I was reading the comments, and of course everybody was like, oh, he's a narcissistic. Oh, he killed her. He did this. He did that. And they were portraying her as the victim of this altercation when it was obviously clear that she was the one that was kicking his behind in the car. And so I felt that his behavior was the behavior of somebody who has been stopped by the police. He's trying to be nice to the police because he don't want to take his butt to jail. But I also don't think he wanted her to go to jail. And so he just appeared to me as somebody who has been stopped by the police, who's shooting the shit with the police to get out of getting a ticket, to get out of going to jail. And so she's in the van and she's crying, she's really pouring on the tears now. And so it gets to the point where the police officers are like sharing their personal life stories, about what it's like to be in a relationship. You guys, this is the most time you've ever spent with each other. And I mean, like, these were the friendliest, most outgoing police officers I had ever seen in my life. And I was like, why y'all don't act like that when y'all stop black people? Because I'm sure if that had been a black couple, they probably would have took both of them to jail. But they go back to Gabby. Gabby is just boohoo crying at this point. And so there's a story that came out today in the news about Joy Reid. I think she's with CNBC or one of these news channels like CNN. MNBC or something, one of those channels. But anyway, she, I guess, made a statement that, she wasn't really concerned about this story because this was just a white woman type story. And I kind of like, when Gabby was crying, I was sort of feeling that same way, like, girl, this is your opportunity. If there's some domestic violence going on, you got all these police officers. There was a female police officer there. Now is the time to say, this man is really abusing me and I don't want to be with him. I want to go home. But instead, she starts pouring on the tears like, woe is me. And she missed the opportunity to get the help that she needed. And so they're both telling the police that they're sorry, that they love each other, that things just got out of control, instead of, if he was abusing her, as the people in the comments were claiming, this was her opportunity to get help. But instead, the police start to feel sorry for her and they say, okay, well, we're not going to arrest her. What we're going to do is put him in a hotel, give her the van, tell them to stay away from each other for, the night, for the next 12 hours or however long it was going to be before they could see this magistrate. Cool off, reflect over the situation, decide if they want to continue on this journey. The police was over there talking to him about being from California and charting the course to Oregon, where they were eventually trying to get to. It was just a kumbaya moment. And then even when they were explaining to him that he was the victim and that she was the perpetrator, but this is what you guys are going to do. You're going to stay apart from the night. Then you're going to show up at the courthouse or the jail or whatever they got in this little small town. You're going to show up there the next day. And then what will probably happen is you'll tell them you don't want to press charges because, like, legally, according to Wyoming law, we have to charge somebody in this case. Then what will happen is they'll let you guys go. They'll set a court date for the future. And then when you get the summons for the court date, just don't respond. And then your non-response, they'll probably drop the charges. So they're like planning out how this scenario can end without either one of them having a criminal record or either one of them having to come back to Wyoming to deal with the situation. So they call, they get him a hotel room. They take him to the hotel. They ask him, before they left the scene, like, is there any message you want to give to her? They ask her, is there any message you want to give to him? And they're like, oh, I love you. I'm sorry this happened. I'm just like, really? Are y'all serious right now? Like, I'm sure at this point, those police officers are feeling some type of responsibility that they could have handled this situation. They're probably second guessing what they did. Like, they should have took her to jail, or they should have got both of them a hotel room or whatever. And then I don't even think it will have made a difference because it appears that she was killed at least 2 weeks maybe after all of this happened. So it's not like the very next day when they met up again that she was killed. She seemed to have been killed at least a week or so after this incident. But that whole police stop it didn't set well with me, okay? Because it was just like I said, girl, if he is abusing you, stop the crying and the, being overwhelmed and talk to these people. And then she spent a lot of time with the female police officer. She could have told her, even if she didn't feel comfortable talking to the men police officers, she could have confided in the female police officer what was really going on. And so from that whole video, I really didn't get I didn't get the feeling of, oh, he's a narcissist. Oh, he did it. Oh, he was going to kill her after the police was gone. I got none of that vibe. I got, he's kissing up to the police officer because he wants to get out of this situation. I got, they probably contacted each other in the middle of the night after they simmered down, and he probably told her, yeah, girl, come on to the hotel. They got me this nice hotel room. Come to the hotel and spend the night. I could really see her, and this is just me speculating, I don't see her having slept in that van by herself. I think she probably went to the hotel with him. Now, what happened after the fact, I don't know. Now, my daughter, and I have searched for this story and I can't find it, but my daughter was telling me that there was a story that had came out that they had stayed at this, they're called hostels. They're like houses, like boarding houses, but I guess people that don't have anywhere else to stay, they'll hook up with friends or whatever at these boarding houses. And so my daughter was saying that she had heard about a story or read about a story where they had stayed at this hostel, and that two of the people that were at the hostel ended up deceased. I haven't found that story. If you know what that story is, please put the link in the comments so I can read that story, because I haven't seen anything about that in connection with this case. So anyway, here we are. They're out there searching for Brian right now, back in that nature preserve, looking for him. They seem to think that he is still in there. I don't know if Brian, you know, these are people that are used to camping, used to being in the outdoors, so they would know how, he would know how to survive. Now, as for what I think actually happened, I think they continued on their journey, and then maybe after a few days, the tension started to rise again and something happened. I don't think it was something intentional. I don't think he intended to kill her. He may have hit her and she fell and hit her head on a rock. He may have, I don't know what happened. I think whatever happened was an accident. I don't think it was intentional. And then he, for some reason, instead of calling for help, panicked like most people panic in situations like that. And then he just got in the car and drove back to Florida, which I think was so stupid that he probably thought that maybe by the time they found her body, that it would have decomposed, that animals may have gotten to the body, because we often hear these stories about people being found in, you know, the desert and the wilderness, and the animals have eaten the body. Maybe he thought that was going to happen and they wouldn't be able to determine, you know, that he was the reason. I don't know if his story was going to be when he got back home that she disappeared and he didn't know what happened to her. Like, I don't know what his rationale was in his mind as to how he was going to explain how this girl disappeared. Or maybe he was going to say that she decided to stay in Wyoming and she gave him the van and told him to return home. Like, I'm trying to come up with all these scenarios of what bro could have been thinking once he got back to Florida without this girl. And maybe he was going to tell his parents that Gabby went back to New York. I don't know what he was thinking. I really don't know. And then there was a story I was reading where she was saying that the grandmother or the grandmother's relative lived somewhere in Oregon and they were going to spend time there. So maybe he was going to say whoever this person was, that Gabby was with that person, and then he decided to come back home and he was going to go back and get her. Like, I'm just trying to come up with some stories that he could have been telling himself on this drive home that was going to explain why this girl wasn't there. And maybe he lost his mind. Somebody lost their mind in all of this, that he thought that this was okay and he was going to get away with not being questioned about her disappearance. And that eventually when this body was found, that he was going to have to explain why she's there dead and he is back in Florida. It's just so crazy and bizarre. And then there was another family from here in Florida, in Tampa, who was also on that trip. And so they saw that van and they thought it was such a unique van because the van had like 2 seats in the front and then it had like this cargo area that I guess they were living in. And so these people recorded the van, and they recorded what looked like a man, which was probably Brian, like off to the side. So they have that on, and they weren't intentionally recording because they thought something was wrong. They were just recording because they saw this unique looking van. It had a Florida license plate on it. And so they were just recording footage as they were passing by, not knowing that that footage was going to become part of this murder investigation. And so I'm going to, keep following this story to see what the end is going to be, because this is just, domestic violence leads to murder too often. But when you have a story like this that is so crazy and so bizarre, and the fact that they had this hour-plus long interaction with the police and how the police treated this domestic violence situation lighthearted, trying to help them out, that's bothering me. And the fact that she spent so much time with the female police officer during the stop and didn't reveal to her true feelings or say what was going on, that it was just brushed off as they had been in this van for too long together. It's kind of like probably what I would have thought too. Like there was just too much togetherness in too close of a confined space. And unfortunately, it ended tragically for Gabby. And Brian, I'm thinking, as most cowards do, he's probably going to kill himself. They'll probably find his body in that preserve somewhere dead. But anyway, just like, wow. You guys, let me know what you think about this whole situation if you've been following the case. Go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.